Imagine a flag so sacred to the Nazi regime that it was kept under constant SS guard, so revered that Hitler himself would use it to consecrate thousands of other Nazi banners in elaborate ceremonies, so important that it appeared at every major Nazi rally, funeral, and celebration for over 2 decades. This wasn't just any flag. It was stained with the blood of Andreas Barredel, an SA man who was shot and fell onto it during the Beer Hall Putsch on November 9th, 1923. The Nazis called it the Blutfahne, the blood flag. For Hitler and his followers, the Blutfahne represented the founding myth of their movement, that the Nazi party was born in blood, sacrifice, and martyrdom. It was treated like a holy relic, with its own designated bearer who carried it at ceremonies for nearly 20 years. New SS recruits swore their blood oaths while touching it. Hitler believed that by touching other flags with the Blutfahne, he was transferring its sacred power to them. The flag was last seen in public on October 18, 1944, at the induction ceremony of the Volkssturm, Hitler's desperate last-ditch civilian militia, formed as the Third Reich crumbled. And then it vanished. For nearly 80 years, historians, collectors, and treasure hunters have been asking, what happened to the Blutfahne? Was it destroyed in Allied bombing, hidden by fleeing Nazis, taken as a war trophy by American or Soviet soldiers? Or does it still exist somewhere, waiting to be discovered? This is the story of Hitler's most sacred relic, the flag that symbolized everything the Nazis claimed to stand for, and one of World War II's most intriguing unsolved mysteries. To understand why the Blutfahne became so important, we need to go back to the night of November 8, 1923, in Munich, Bavaria. Hitler and approximately 600 Sturmabteilung SA members marched on the Bürgerbräukeler Beer Hall, where Gustav Ritter von Kahr, the minister-president of Bavaria, was delivering a speech. Hitler entered, fired a shot into the ceiling, and declared that the national revolution had begun. This was Hitler's attempt to emulate Mussolini's successful March on Rome the previous year. He planned to use Munich as a base for a march on Berlin to overthrow the Weimar Republic government. It was a complete disaster. The next morning, approximately 2,000 men marched out with Hitler and General Erich Ludendorff toward the Bavarian Defense Ministry. At the Odeonsplatz in front of the Feldherrenhalle, they met a force of 130 soldiers blocking their way. The two groups exchanged fire, which resulted in the deaths of 16 Nazis, 4 police officers, and 1 bystander. Among those marching in the front ranks was the 5th SA Sturm, carrying their company flag, a swastika banner made of red cloth with a white circle and black swastika in the center. The flag bearer, Heinrich Trambauer, was shot and wounded. He dropped the flag. Andreas Barredel, an SA man marching alongside, was fatally shot in the stomach and fell onto the flag, staining it with his blood. The putsch collapsed. Hitler fled and was later arrested. He would spend 9 months in Landsberg prison, where he dictated Mein Kampf to Rudolf Hess. But the blood-stained flag survived. According to historical accounts, either the wounded Trambauer managed to take the flag with him, or it was seized by Munich police and later recovered. Whatever the exact chain of custody, when Hitler was released from prison on December 20th, 1924, Karl Eggers, deputy commander of the 6th Company of the Munich SA Regiment, personally returned the flag to him. Hitler immediately recognized the propaganda value of this bloodstained banner. In 1925, party members undertook restoration to preserve the artifact. The flag was fitted with a new pole and finial, and silver thread embroidery was added bearing the names of 3 fallen SA men, Andreas Barredel, Anton Heschenberger, and Lorenz Ritter von Stransky-Griffenfeld, whose blood had stained it. The pole itself was engraved with the names of all 16 who had died in the putsch. These men would become known as the blood martyrs of the Nazi movement. In 1926, at the Second Nazi Party Congress at Weimar, Hitler ceremonially bestowed the flag on Josef Berchtold, then head of the SS. This was an immense honor, marking the Blutfahne as an official symbol of SS authority. But Hitler went further. He declared that the Blutfahne would be used in a special ceremony called the Fahnenweihe, the flag consecration. The consecration involved a ritual where Adolf Hitler touched or laid the Blutfahne upon new SA and SS standards during ceremonies, transferring symbolic sanctity derived from the flag's association with the 1923 Beer Hall Putsch martyrs. Think about what this meant in Nazi ideology. The Nazis had constructed an entire mythology around the Beer Hall Putsch, transforming a failed coup attempt into a heroic founding moment. The 16 dead weren't failures, they were martyrs whose sacrifice had consecrated the Nazi movement itself. The Nazi rationale posited that the blood of the fallen gave the flag quasi-religious power, and touching other flags with it would imbue them with equivalent resolve and legitimacy. It was bizarre political theater with pseudo-religious overtones, but for the Nazis, it worked. The ceremony created a direct link between every new Nazi flag and the movement's founding myth. Every banner that Hitler touched with the Blutfahne became, in Nazi eyes, sanctified by the blood of the martyrs. The flag was thereafter treated as a sacred object by the Nazi Party and carried by SS Sturmbannführer Jakob Grimminger at various Nazi Party ceremonies. Jakob Grimminger became one of the most photographed but least known figures of the Nazi regime. Jakob Grimminger was born on April 25, 1892 in Augsburg. He joined the Nazi Party in 1922 and became a member of the Sturmabteilung. Grimminger was a true believer. He had fought in World War I, serving in an air regiment and participating in the Gallipoli campaign. He earned the Iron Cross Second Class and Turkish decorations. When he returned to Germany after the war, like many veterans, he was drawn to the radical nationalist politics of the Nazi Party. In 1926, when the Blutfahne was officially designated as the party's most sacred relic, Grimminger was appointed as its sole bearer and guardian. For the next 18 years, this would be his defining role. Grimminger was present at virtually every major Nazi ceremony from 1926 until 1944. At the massive Nuremberg Rallies, he stood beside Hitler, holding the Blutfahne as Hitler touched it to hundreds of other flags. At state funerals of important Nazi officials, Grimminger was there with the flag. At the annual November 9th commemorations of the Beer Hall Putsch, Grimminger led the procession carrying the sacred banner. He was decorated with the Golden Party Badge, the Blood Order, number 714, and the Coburg Badge, three of the most prized decorations of the NSDAP. In thousands of photographs and films from the Nazi era, you can see Grimminger. He's usually in the background, standing stiffly at attention in his SS uniform, holding the flagpole, the blood-stained banner hanging beside Hitler. He rarely spoke, he rarely moved, he was simply the man with the flag. When not being used in ceremonies, the Blutfahne was kept in the Brown House, the Nazi Party headquarters in Munich, in a secure storage area with its own SS Guard of Honor. The flag was maintained in immaculate condition. There was a small tear in it, believed to have occurred during the Putsch itself, and this tear was deliberately never repaired. It was proof of the flag's authenticity, a permanent reminder of the violence of that day. For nearly 2 decades, the Blutfahne was arguably the most important physical object in Nazi Germany outside of Hitler himself. The Blutfahne's most visible role was at the annual Nuremberg Party Rallies, massive propaganda spectacles that took place from 1933 to 1938. These weren't just political rallies, they were carefully choreographed theatrical productions designed to overwhelm participants and observers with the power and unity of the Nazi movement. Hundreds of thousands of people attended. The events lasted for days. There were parades, speeches, torchlit processions, and elaborate ceremonies. And at the center of many of these ceremonies was the Blutfahne. The flag consecration ceremony was one of the most important rituals at Nuremberg. New flags from SA units, SS divisions, Hitler youth groups, and other Nazi organizations would be brought forward. Hitler would take the Blutfahne from Grimminger, hold it, and then touch or lay it upon the new flags. Photographic evidence from the 1930s rallies depicts Hitler holding the Blutfahne aloft, while SA and SS leaders aligned new flags for brief physical contact, often accompanied by oaths of allegiance and choral recitations emphasizing sacrifice. And the symbolism was clear. These new flags weren't just pieces of cloth. They had been touched by the blood of martyrs. They were now consecrated sacred objects themselves that carried the authority and legitimacy of the Nazi movement's founding sacrifice. Film director Leni Riefenstahl captured these ceremonies in her propaganda masterpiece, Triumph of the Will, filmed at the 1934 Nuremberg Rally. The footage shows tens of thousands of men standing in perfect formation, the Blutfahne prominently displayed as Hitler moved through the ranks. The ceremonies served multiple purposes. They created emotional bonds between Nazi members and their flags. They reinforced the martyrdom narrative that was central to Nazi ideology. They demonstrated Hitler's personal authority to sanctify and legitimize. And they created spectacular visual propaganda for domestic and international audiences. But beneath the pageantry was something darker. The Blutfahne represented the Nazi cult of death and sacrifice. It celebrated violence. It glorified those who had tried to overthrow democracy through force. It was a physical embodiment of the Nazi belief that bloodshed was noble, that political violence was justified, that dying for the movement was the highest calling. Every time Hitler touched another flag with the Blutfahne, he was symbolically saying, "Be willing to die for this cause," as the martyrs died. As World War II progressed and Germany's situation became increasingly desperate, the Blutfahne continued to appear at ceremonies, but less frequently. The massive Nuremberg Rallies stopped after 1938. The war demanded resources and attention, but the flag still appeared at important moments: funerals of high-ranking Nazis, the annual November 9th Beer Hall Putsch commemorations, and special induction ceremonies. The Blutfahne was last seen in public at the induction ceremony of the Volkssturm on October 18, 1944. The Volkssturm was Hitler's desperate last resort militia, conscripting boys and old men to defend Germany as Allied and Soviet forces closed in from all sides. The ceremony was conducted by Heinrich Himmler and attended by top Nazi officials including Wilhelm Keitel, Heinz Guderian, Hans Lammers, and Martin Bormann. Grimminger was there as always, holding the flag. It was a grim ceremony. By October 1944, Germany was clearly losing the war. The Normandy invasion had succeeded. The Soviets were pushing from the east. German cities were being bombed to ruins. The regime was calling up literally anyone who could hold a weapon, from 16-year-old boys to 60-year-old men, to fight a war that was already lost. The presence of the Blutfahne at this ceremony was deeply symbolic. The Nazis were returning to their founding myth: blood, sacrifice, in a desperate cause. Just as the 16 martyrs had fallen in 1923, these Volkssturm conscripts were being asked to sacrifice themselves for the Reich. After October 18, 1944, the Blutfahne was never seen in public again. After the fall of Nazi Germany in mid-1945, the fate of the Blutfahne, of which Grimminger was the guardian, is unknown. Its current whereabouts are unknown, but it is generally assumed to have been destroyed amidst the Allied bombing of Munich in 1945. But was it really destroyed, or did something else happen? Several theories exist, each plausible, but none definitively proven. Theory 1. Destroyed in Allied bombing. The most popular theory is that it was taken back to Nazi headquarters and destroyed during the Allied bombing of Munich in 1945. The Brown House, where the flag was kept when not in use, was hit by Allied bombs in January 1945. However, the building wasn't completely destroyed. It was damaged but still standing. More importantly, the Blutfahne was kept in a secure underground storage area specifically designed to protect valuable Nazi relics. So even if the Brown House was bombed, it's not certain the flag was destroyed. Theory 2. Taken by American forces. Another popular theory is that the Blutfahne was taken as a souvenir by Allied forces after they swept into Munich. It could have been split into fragments and its pieces taken home by a number of U.S. infantrymen, or one soldier could have taken it home without realizing what he had found. American soldiers routinely took Nazi flags, daggers, medals, and other items as war trophies. If someone found the Blutfahne, they might not have recognized it as different from any other Nazi flag. It could be sitting in an attic somewhere in the United States, its true significance unknown to the family that owns it. Theory: WWII hidden by Grimminger or other Nazis. Jakob Grimminger survived the war. He was arrested briefly but released. He lived in Munich in obscurity and poverty until his death in 1969 at age 77. Some historians speculate that Grimminger, knowing the war was lost, might have hidden the flag somewhere safe rather than see it destroyed or captured. He was its guardian for 18 years. He might have felt responsible for preserving it. But if Grimminger hid the flag, he never revealed its location, even on his deathbed. He gave no interviews, left no memoirs, provided no deathbed confession about the fate of the Blutfahne. Theory: 4. Destroyed by the Nazis themselves. Some proponents argue that SS or party loyalists burned the flag in early 1945 to deny allies a potent symbol of Nazi martyrdom, consistent with broader Nazi protocols for incinerating sensitive relics during retreats. As the Reich collapsed, the Nazis destroyed many documents and items they didn't want falling into Allied hands. Burning the Blutfahne would have ensured it could never be displayed as a trophy of Allied victory. Better to destroy it than allow their most sacred relic to be desecrated. Theory: 5. Soviet trophy. Though less discussed than the American theory, it's possible Soviet forces obtained the flag. The Soviets took enormous quantities of German art, artifacts, and cultural items as war trophies. Many of these items remain in Russian archives to this day. However, there's no evidence the Soviets ever had the Blutfahne, and given its propaganda value, they likely would have publicly displayed it if they had. You might be wondering, why does the fate of a Nazi flag matter? Why should we care whether it was destroyed or survived somewhere? There are several reasons this mystery endures. First, historical significance. The Blutfahne was arguably the single most important physical artifact of the Nazi regime, besides Hitler himself. It appeared at virtually every major Nazi ceremony for 2 decades. It was central to Nazi mythology and ritual. Understanding what happened to it tells us something about the chaotic final days of the Third Reich. Second, the question of Nazi relics. The fate of the Blutfahne raises larger questions about what should happen to objects associated with evil regimes. Should they be destroyed to prevent them from becoming shrines for neo-Nazis? Should they be preserved in museums as educational tools? If the Blutfahne were discovered today, what should be done with it? Third, the possibility of rediscovery. If the flag wasn't destroyed, if it was taken as a souvenir or hidden away, it could still be discovered. Someone could find it in an attic, a storage unit, or a hidden cache. What would happen if one of the most notorious Nazi artifacts suddenly resurfaced? Fourth, closure. Like many World War II mysteries, there is a human desire to know what happened. The Blutfahne's disappearance is a loose end, an unanswered question from history's most studied conflict. Fifth, it's a symbol of how the mighty fall. The Blutfahne was treated as a quasi-religious relic, guarded by the SS, revered by millions of Nazis, and then it simply vanished, lost in the chaos, as the regime it represented collapsed. There's something almost poetic about that. What we can say with certainty is this: if the Blutfahne does survive somewhere, its owner would be sitting on one of the most historically significant and ethically complicated artifacts from World War II. So what happened to Hitler's Blutfahne, the blood flag, the most sacred relic of the Nazi Party? The honest answer is, we don't know, and we may never know. After its last public display in October 1944, the Blutfahne vanished, and its current whereabouts remain unknown. The most likely explanation remains that it was destroyed in the Allied bombing of Munich, or deliberately destroyed by retreating Nazis. The fire and chaos of war's end consumed countless artifacts. The Blutfahne may simply have been one more casualty, but the possibility remains that it survived. Perhaps an American soldier took it home and it sits unrecognized in someone's attic. Perhaps Jakob Grimminger hid it in some secret location, taking the secret to his grave. Perhaps it's in a Russian archive, cataloged incorrectly or deliberately hidden away. Whatever its fate, the Blutfahne serves as a reminder of the Nazi regime's ability to manipulate symbols and create powerful mythology around violence and sacrifice. A flag that became soaked in blood during a failed coup attempt was transformed into a quasi-religious relic, used in elaborate ceremonies to legitimize a regime that would go on to cause the deaths of tens of millions. The flag may be gone, but the lesson it teaches remains. Beware of movements that glorify violence, that create myths of martyrdom, that treat bloodshed as sacred. The Blutfahne was more than just a piece of cloth. It was a symbol of everything the Nazis claimed to represent, and ultimately, a symbol of everything they destroyed. Thank you for watching. If you found this deep dive into one of World War II's lost artifacts fascinating, please subscribe for more historical mysteries. And let me know in the comments, do you think the Blutfahne was destroyed, or could it still exist somewhere? What should be done with it if it's ever found? Until next time, remember, sometimes the most powerful artifacts aren't gold or jewels, they're symbols and the stories we tell about them.